Now, if you've been following this channel for a while, you may know that I've always been a fan of the F series of the Poco phones, since it has one of the best price to quality ratios. And usually when it comes to the X series, I was always on the fence about the releases, because there's always something that I did not like about the phone. But this Poco X4 Pro 5G might be something else. Now, starting from the unboxing, the box comes in black with the Poco X4 text on the left and the Poco logo down below towards the right. Opening the box, there is the usual small yellow box which has the SIM ejector pin on the outside, the warranty card, the quick start guide and the clear phone case. Then you'll find a screen protector. Now, this is unique. Next, there is the phone itself. Underneath, there's the USB-A to USB-C cable and a massive 67 watt fast charging brick. Now, here are the phone specs, and feel free to pause this video if you want to see the exact variant that I'm reviewing and the current price as well. Now next, let's talk about the build and the design. Now, while I'm not a huge fan of glossy smartphones because it can attract lots of fingerprints like crazy, and of course could be quite slippery as well, I feel there is an exception for this particular phone. Firstly, this laser black variant that I have follows the other color variants of having a very unique laser looking streaks, where if you shine it against the light, it will show that sort of a laser lines, and that is surely something that caught my eye and everyone else who have seen me using this phone daily. And because the plastic frame had a matte finish, it also did grip the phone very well compared to the other glossier phones, especially with this more squarish kind of frame. Now, while on paper the phone weighs about 205 grams, which does seem like it was on the hefty side, but during my daily usage I did not find it heavy at all. Now, what I find very interesting is that the camera arrays at the back followed the design language of the Poco M4 series instead of following the similar style of the camera arrays for the previous Poco X3's circular design. Then in terms of the phone's durability, the front glass has a Corning Gorilla Glass 5 protection and an official IP53 splash-proof protection as well. Next, looking at the ports and buttons, looking down below, other than the USB-C port, just next to it there's the dual SIM card slot with a hybrid card slot to switch between SIM 2 with a micro SD card which can support up to 1TB. Then there's one of the two stereo speakers over there, where the other is available on top, and it does go pretty loud, I might add. And speaking of the top of the phone, you'll also find the headphones jack and the IR blaster over there. Then finally, on the right there is the volume rocker and the power button that doubles up as the side fingerprint sensor, which unlocks really fast as expected, which was interesting because the phone does come with an AMOLED screen, but it does not have the in-display fingerprint sensor instead. Now, speaking of the display, it comes with a 6.67-inch AMOLED dot display, which is a spec bump compared to the previous IPS LCD display, and it has a high refresh rate of 120Hz and also an FHD Plus resolution of 1080 by 2400 pixels. Then the phone goes up to a peak brightness of 1200 nits, which was really nice to know, especially for a phone within this price range. So I had absolutely no issues using the phone in a very brightly lit area like here in the studio or even in bright daylight as well. However, the viewing angles were not the best, and playback on Netflix was at Widevine L3 and playback was up to SD instead of FHD, and here's where I believe that could be a software limitation since the phone does go up to an FHD Plus resolution. But still, watching videos on the phone was still great, with nice color accuracy but not as sharp that I would like when I was watching on Netflix. But still, it was perfect when watching videos on YouTube, supporting its highest resolution. Then in terms of the speakers' performance when watching videos, while the speakers can get pretty loud, I would say that the vocal clarity was just decent, where it sounded better on the mids. And the high refresh rate was of course the nice touch when I was using the phone daily for multitasking and overall app experience due to the 360Hz of touch sampling rate. But keep in mind that this high refresh rate is not adaptive, so it won't really help when it comes to the overall battery performance. But let's see how the battery performs later on in this video. Next, looking at the camera's performance. As for the specs, the main lens is a massive 108 megapixel f1.9 aperture lens, an 8 megapixel f2.2 ultra wide lens, and a 2 megapixel f2.4 macro lens. Then the front camera is a 60 megapixel f2.4 aperture lens. Now, just so you all know that these images that I took, I kind of turned off the AI mode in the camera app, as it does seem to boost the saturation too much. So I turned it off for the best results when it comes to the pictures as seen in these images. Starting from the 108 megapixel mode, the dynamic range, the colors and details were quite flawless, even when you zoomed in close. And while the dynamic range and the colors for the ultra-wide lens and the ultra-wide focal length was excellent as well, but if you really pixel peep, you will find there is a slight softness in the edges of the images. Then, because the main lens has that huge 108 megapixel sensor, I absolutely loved all the images coming out from this main lens, where it was sharp all around and also had very good quality as well. And while the 2x digital zoom was still great, but you will see the image start falling apart with the maximum 10x digital zoom, so I wouldn't use that in my daily usage. Then, as for the rear portrait mode, when it comes to human subjects, it was extremely great with fantastic subject to background blur and no overexposing in the shots, but it will be a hit or miss when taking portrait mode shots for subjects instead. Then when it comes to the macro mode shots, while I've seen many Poco or even Xiaomi phones doing an excellent job at the macro mode photos, I wouldn't say it was the same over here, where it wasn't easy to nail focus, and if you get the shots, the overall images still turn out very soft, and overall the images was not very usable indeed. Then as for the night mode, the ultra-wide lens does not have the dedicated night mode capabilities, and because of that you can expect a slightly softer images on the ultra-wide lenses at night, where the main lenses had a great balance of highlights and shadows as well. And portrait mode at night without activating the night mode was also surprisingly good on the skin tones and also the age detection, which seems like that is the similar case when it comes to the daytime shots, which shows that this phone is indeed really good when it comes to the rear lenses and especially the portrait mode shots. Then the selfie images was really great as well, especially if the light is shining towards you, but not really on a high exposed background. But of course that was fine considering the price of the phone. Then the selfie portrait images was almost like it was taken on a flagship smartphone with great age detection and skin tones as well. Now as for video recording, here's where the phone's biggest weaknesses is, as the rear cameras go up to only 1080p 30 frames per second, and while the quality of the footage was still okay, the image stabilization is what makes the whole footage not a great footage to use. Now I did find something a bit peculiar, because when I was recording and looking at the phone screen, it seems like the stabilization was great, but when I play back the footage, it wasn't as good, so keep that in mind. And the same can be said for the front video recording as well, which also records at the exact resolution and frame rate. And then there is the macro video mode that can record up to 720p. Yep. And not only the footage was really shaky, but the quality of the video was totally... I have nothing to say. So for the life of me, I don't even get why this feature is even there. Now, one thing definitely worth mentioning is the fact that the phone screen dimming was extremely apparent, specifically when taking photos and videos during the day, where as soon as the phone detects that it's getting hot, it immediately dims the phone screen to a point where I can't even see the screen properly. I know that this is a safety precaution, but I just thought that I'll let you all know. And of course, here is an audio video test when using the phone's front cameras. So this is a video and audio recording test for the front camera. Like I mentioned, right now when I look at the viewfinder or the screen of the phone, it looks like it is pretty stable, and what's funny is that when I play back the video, it does not look as stable as how I see it on the screen. But the purpose of this particular video is for you to hear how exactly the microphone performs when it comes to the front camera for any vlogging situation. So overall, I have to say that the rear camera photos, especially the portrait mode, were the best. But do let me know what you think of the camera's performance, and if you're enjoying this video so far, a nice big thumbs up would be nice, and a subscription would be awesome as well. Thank you in advance. So the Poco X4 Pro 5G ships with Android 11. Yep. not 12, and with MIUI version 13.0.8.0. Here we go again with those decibels. Now, I've mentioned many times that I was hoping for a new design refresh. However, we only got updates such as the sidebar and some performance update. Yes, it's still better than nothing, I guess, but ultimately that is what's the most crucial usability factor anyway. And with this current update and even the previous update before I just updated to the latest version of MIUI, I did not come to a point of where the phone hung on me or had any issues when I was opening up several apps at the same time. Now, this Snapdragon 695 chipset with my variant of 6GB of RAM with the additional 2GB of virtual RAM was way enough to keep my phone up and running when it comes to using it daily for multitasking and heavy usage. And also worth mentioning is that the haptics of the phone was also really good too. So the Poco X4 Pro 5G has 5000 mAh of battery, and during my usage, the battery drain was really at an optimal range where it only went down to an 83% when I had a screen on time of 1 hour and 4 minutes, so that was nice to know. But there is something very weird about the new battery software update, because I actually took a screenshot for several situations, where for situation 1, it shows that when I was at 51%, I had 4 hours and 44 minutes of screen on time, and then at 39%, I had 4 hours or 42 minutes of screen on time, which for some strange reason, it went down. And when I was at 37%, I was at 3 hours and 46 minutes of screen on time. So you will have to just trust me to say that I had a very good screen on time on the phone daily when I was using the phone, where I got an average of 1.5 days of battery life. Now, what's sweet is that the phone supports 67 watts turbo charging, where as seen in the unboxing, the charger does come inside of the box, where it got me from 0 to 50% in about 20 minutes or so, and that was of course really sweet. And while the phone does come with a glass back as mentioned, but the phone does not come with a wireless charging, so keep that in mind. Now, when it comes to gaming, just to see how far I can go with my gaming test, I immediately started off Genshin Impact, and it ran very well with medium settings at 60 frames per second. Now, the gameplay was surprisingly running smoothly without any lag or micro jitters. It even barely felt hot at all, even after 10 minutes of gameplay, which usually happens with other smartphones within this overall range. However, there was a noticeable battery drain, but the overall experience was amazing considering the price of the phone. And I tested out PUBG Mobile, where the maximum settings for the graphics were at HD and the frame rate was set to high. Now, as expected, the gameplay ran smooth without any stutter or any issues when it comes to lagging or even overheating issues at all. But one thing I find it weird is why it limit at HD graphics, where usually it could go up to HDR or at least with an ultra frame rate. So hopefully a software update could fix this. Now, when it comes to the physicality of playing games on the phone, it felt really good because of the frame, and the phone was also not heavy, where it felt comfortable without any hand strain even during a longer gameplay up to 1.5 hours. So in conclusion, while there was a huge debate about how the Poco X4 Pro was very reminiscent or it was Poco's version of the Redmi Note 11 Pro 5G, since the specs is exactly the same, well, I have to humbly disagree, as this Poco X4 Pro 5G is indeed a unique phone where firstly it does not look or even feel like a mid-range smartphone with the almost flagship-like design. Now, the overall image processing and the quality for the rear cameras was great, gaming was really decent, battery life was really good as well, and the overall experience that I got daily was a really nice and a unique experience indeed. And currently, it comes with a price of 1,199 ringgit for the 6GB of RAM with 128GB of storage, and 1,499 ringgit for the 8GB of RAM and the 256GB of storage variant. Now, speaking of Poco smartphones, do check out my 9th month video review of the Poco F3 over here and the Poco M4 Pro 4G versus the 5G variant over here.